radioonfire.com. Of course, so much going on by way of the, I'm going to say controversial election simply because of the way that it was handled, or shall I say mishandled. It's not that hard to count votes. You know what I mean? But from what I can see, the votes have been counted. The tallies have been made, and we have the matchup for the general election. We are going to see in Baltimore, by way of the mayor's race. The Democratic nominee is Brandon Scott. The Republican Party's GOP nominee is Shannon Wright. And we are going to be speaking with Shannon Wright, who is, as I said, the Republican Party's nominee. She is on the ballot for the general election, which takes place November 3rd, 2020. And she advanced from this Republican primary. And I believe that we have her on the line. Ms. Wright, are you there?
I am. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. And yourself?
Good. So, I wanted to know, were you surprised at the results from the primary?
No, actually, not on either side.
Not on either side. Okay, yeah, okay. So I'm going to say, so you thought that Brandon Scott was going to emerge from that?
I thought he was definitely one of the top contenders, honestly.
Yeah.
Just seeing, in running for office, if you are tone deaf, you should not do it. So in trying to really see what the voters and the residents of the city were looking at, hearing at least on a superficial level the change that they were looking for, I expected he would have to be one of the contenders. And
change, I think, is the perfect word. People definitely want change. People need change. Baltimore has been in a rut for a long time. And change, I assume, is something that you are bringing to the table.
Absolutely. So going back to your first question, if I was surprised, I was not, because again, reading the change on, as I said, at least the surface level. The problem is the change is only the surface level. And Baltimore needs to stop putting Band-Aids on things and get to the root cause, clean it out so that it can heal properly. So when we talk about change, we need real change, not just in terms of the face and the name, but policy change, direction change. And I think we haven't had that for a long time.
A lot of people, mainstream outlets are just crowning Brandon Scott the next mayor. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, they've set his coronation date and all of that. I know that just as we didn't expect to be where we are now in terms of dealing with a global pandemic,
right,
and the civil unrest because of patterns of ongoing abuse, none of us expected to be where we are. So clearly, change is a very fluid thing. So I would suggest no one be too premature with the coronation.
Absolutely. And you referenced the protest. Obviously, you've had a chance to see the video of the murder of George Floyd. What were your thoughts on that video?
It was really, really hard to watch.
Yeah.
I raised two boys, and being that I'm Black, clearly they are too. So there's some conversations that Black mothers have to have with their sons that are just an extra level of world preparation that they need, and that is really unfortunate. But to assume that that's no longer the case is a dangerous assumption. That video showed all too real how far we still have to go. When you raise your children, there are certain things you want to see them do better than you did. You want to see them be successful. There are things that you want to see. But depending on where you live and the color of your skin, you just want to see them come home at the end of the day.
Yeah.
That should not still, in this day and age, be a major concern.
And so from the ashes of that tragedy and countless other tragedies, there has been a lot of pushback at the police. Some people are saying defund the police, all types of catchphrases out there. What do you think about the defund the police, or what needs to happen with the police? I guess first, defund the police. What is your stance on that?
So when you say defund, you don't say decrease. When you say defund, it means take away.
Right.
So I think in the climate where we are right now as a city, with the crime rates, the homicide rates specifically that we have, to defund as in take away the police, I think is a bit short-sighted. I do think that there needs to be, this might be that time that we've been looking for and needing, as evidenced by the fact that the police issues have gone on long enough and have been deep enough that we now have a consent decree. Obviously, there is a time and a space, and this is that time and space for some reevaluation. We have to look at crime flourishes when opportunity dies. So we do need to prioritize bringing back opportunities, bringing back opportunities that are realistic and giving folks hope that the city is going in the right direction. When you do those things, I think you decrease the amount of crime that you see. So I think there needs to balance. I think defund is absolutely wrong. Readjust, absolutely. Prioritize filling some of the gaps that past administrations have allowed in terms of seeing opportunities leaving the city. We absolutely have to fix that. And yes, it will take funds to do it. So I think that there is some opportunity for realignment, but I absolutely would not say defund, as in take away.
So we say realignment. Some officers mysteriously do not turn on their body cameras. And the only reason that we have the visuals of the Floyd murder is because bystanders put their cameras on. But let's say that this happened and we didn't have video. We wouldn't even know about it.
You're right. You're absolutely right. I think going back to the body cam, it's there for a reason, and it should be on at all times, unless of course you're engaged in something that you don't want people to see. Right.
I agree with that. So as far as Police Commissioner Harrison, I think we've had enough time to give him a grade or be able to assess the job that he's doing. What are your thoughts on Police Commissioner Harrison and the job that he's done thus far?
Well, I'm one that likes to give a fair and unbiased perspective, and being that the commissioner nor anyone from the police has bothered to respond to my numerous attempts to reach out, my perspective is simply what I've read and heard, which is not always the most accurate assessment. That being said, I think the numbers themselves say we're still not going in the right direction.
Right.
I mean, you can have an opinion based on personality, you can have an opinion based on facts, and the facts are the numbers, and the numbers say we ain't going the right way yet.
So does he need to go? If you are elected mayor, what kind of conversation are you having? Are you giving him the pink slip?
So once elected mayor, it is my intention to have that real quick heart-to-heart with all of the agency and department heads, that all will be given pink slips and given the opportunity to reapply and prove why the taxpayers, not me, that taxpayers should continue to support and pay them. We have a lot of agencies where we're not seeing what we should be seeing. Public works, education, police department, crime, safety, a whole bunch of areas. And I think it's time for folks to actually have to be able to defend the argument of why they should continue to be spending your hard-earned dollars.
Agreed. couple of other things I want to ask you about with regards to the police. Where do you stand with no-knock warrants?
So I kind of believe that everyone has some rights. And when you do things like that, you take away those rights. Now, I understand crime is high, and police sometimes say, well, we need to have these things that give us that extra edge. Right. And I might, forgetting the fact that I'm Black, and I've seen how that turns out, okay? If I did not know for a fact that there's a lot of times where these no-knock warrants are served at the wrong address, I might also be more inclined to consider it. But I think that there are some internal things within the police department to make sure their accuracy is at 100% before I could even entertain the notion. There are too many issues of folks that were attacked in their own home, literally because they were in the wrong place. So I think there's some internal things before you can even look at giving that kind of power and authority. You have to have the trust that it will be used properly. And I don't think we're there.
Agreed. I definitely agree with that. So for people that are not familiar with you, maybe seeing you now for the first time, what separates you? What is different about you than what they would get from Brandon Scott?
Oh, I don't know if you have enough time left in your show for all that. Let's start with this. I understand being here in Baltimore. Baltimore is my home, but I've had the opportunity to work outside of Baltimore and outside of Maryland. A lot of the problems that we face here in Baltimore, we're not an anomaly. You find them in other cities. You find them in parts of Atlanta, parts of Chicago, parts of LA, parts of New York. And I've had the opportunity to work in those cities to be able to get a perspective that's outside the box. The last several administrations like the box, they like the comfort zone, they like to stay in the box. That's not where you find the solutions. If that was the case, we wouldn't be in the direction that we are. So with me, you get experience. You get a leader that has seen how these things actually work, not just the cute sound bites. You get a leader that understands that most of us, for the most part, have more in common than that separates us and can work to find common ground and understand how that really works. You get a leader that understands also that unlike the phrase that you hear in Baltimore about power comes from a seat at the table and the Democrats provide that, those of us around long enough to understand the true concept of power realize that power doesn't come from a seat at the table. Power comes from a seat at all the tables. And we need leadership that understands that and is willing to negotiate and communicate to bring home all the resources available, not just some of the resources available. We've allowed the folks that we represent, elected to represent us in Baltimore, to bring home crumbs and been satisfied with that. I don't want the crumbs. Baltimore doesn't need the crumbs. We deserve more than the crumbs. We need a leader that understands this is where the resources are and this is where they're going to get them, period.
So what is the biggest problem in Baltimore?
There are a couple. I don't think I could narrow it down to just one. Again, the thing that a lot of folks focus on is the crime. But to fix the crime, you got to fix the two behind the scene issues that add to the crime. And one is education. And one is economic opportunity. See, when you starting out at a lower economic bracket, which is where I started out at, quite honestly, you learn pretty quick that the one way out of that is education. We're not providing that here, not successfully, not a quality education. That's number one. And number two, economic opportunities. We are not doing the things, we have allowed the leadership in the city to not do the things for several administrations that provide an economic climate where jobs come here because companies come here and companies stay here and they grow here, and providing an opportunity for folks to get jobs that come with a paycheck that they can support a family on. We've allowed our leadership to let that ball drop. So if you fix those two, you go towards fixing the crime.
So, a registered Democrat, is not usually inclined to vote for a member of the Republican Party. It definitely happened in 2016. You had a lot of Democrats voting for Trump. So for you to win, you would need Democrats to support you.
Yes, I would. I'm sorry. My partner, my campaign manager is here with me today. I apologize.
You would need for them to support you. But in order for that to happen, I would assume that you would have to show them that you would do some of the things that would help them. The vast majority of this city is a registered Democrat. Where do you sit with regards to traditional conservative views versus a Democratic view of things?
Okay, so I'm kind of actually glad you asked that. First of all, I would say voting party is one of the problems that we've had. Don't vote for the party, vote for the person, and vote for the person that seems to be more in line with where you come from, who you are, and where you want to go. That's number one. And number two, because that is how I operate, I don't need labels. So when I look at somebody, I want to know who you are. I want to know what you think. I want to know what you value, because you can't represent me if we don't have some common ground. And because that is truly how I operate, 2 days ago, one of the campaigns on the Democrat side had said to me from the beginning, if we don't win, we are going to support you. And they reached out to me 2 days ago, and there is actually an effort in a first meeting this coming Tuesday, and I will message you that information, where I'm meeting with several of the Democratic primary mayoral candidates and their volunteers to be able to move the city forward. This is not about party. This is about policy that's going to benefit people. If you vote strictly party, you're going to continue to vote the way you have. You're going to continue to get what you've been getting. And then you can no longer complain or even have an opinion about the direction the city is going in. However, I'm going to suggest that every registered voter vote in their best interest, as they've allowed their elected leaders to legislate in their own best interest, and vote for a candidate that understands, one, family values, and that nothing put forward in this city should further destroy or hurt families, because those are the cornerstones of our communities. I'm going to ask that you vote your best interest in voting someone that understands the concern and the fear that when you send your child to school in the morning, that they will come back with all the parts and pieces they left you with. Number one, I want you to vote for someone that understands that the best way to keep your children and yourselves from looking at things that could end you up in those criminal statistics is to have opportunities, and understands what it means to bring those opportunities into the city and put them on the table. That's what I want you to vote for. Forget the party, because the party doesn't care about anything. Either party does not care about anything but growing their numbers. What I care about is the people that live in the city. I care about my neighbors. I care about the people in the communities next to me. I care about the communities on the other side of the city. That's what you should vote for. Okay.
That is definitely different from what we hear a lot of politicians normally say. If you're just tuning in, Diamond K Show here on Radio on Fire, I am speaking with Shannon Wright, who is facing off against Brandon Scott in the general election for mayor of Baltimore. As far as your movement in your campaign, how can people support you or find out more about you?
You can go to writeforbaltimore.com. You can find me also at Write for Baltimore on Facebook. You can find me at PSW4U on Twitter. I'm all over the place. And I want to leave everyone with this note. I know that your show gets a lot of viewership in the city. So for those that are supporting staying in the swampy waters that the city has been in for a long time, I and my campaign will not be going quietly into the night. This will not be a coronation that is already scheduled. This will be a knockdown, drag out battle. I will not allow myself, my neighbors, my community, and all of these communities to continue to be taken for granted by one party leadership that has led us down the hole where we are looking at crime rates that are off the chart, poor performing schools, taxes going up, return on that interest and quality of life going down. We're not going to have that no more. And I, as a Black woman who has always been Black, grew up with a mom that was a single teen mom in the hood, understands I know how to fight. I ain't going nowhere and I ain't going to be quiet. I have made a commitment to fight for this city and I shall continue to do so.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you taking some time to talk with me. I definitely want to talk to you again before the general takes place. And I really like your words of bipartisanship, people from various backgrounds working together. I think that is something that's much needed. And I definitely look forward to speaking with you again. Much success to you and everything. Definitely. Thank you. Of course, that was Shannon Wright, and she is running for mayor of Baltimore. So we're definitely going to be following her and that whole race. Stay tuned. There's going to be more after this.